Good morning, students. So we are continuing with the lecture on colonialism. So we are moving forward to post-colonialism and post-colonial theory, but this is a background to post-colonial studies. So we are starting with what is colonialism. So this is just a quick recap in which in the last class we looked into the etymology of colonialism, how it is defined as a settlement in a new territory by a group of people and how they retained their citizenship, and then we looked into the detailed aspects of the definition in which we understood that there is there is this clear avoidance of the reference to the original settlers of those lands, and how the definition completely avoids any implication of encounter which would have happened. And we ultimately came to the point that colonialism is different in different areas. It is not an identical process, and the relationships were complex and traumatic. And then we moved into the specific aspect of forming a community. So we understood that forming a community necessarily meant that there was some kind of unforming or reforming the community which was already there, and it can be through the methods like trade settlement. It can be trade settlement, plunder, negotiation, etc. And then we looked into the history of all those conquests. So I bring to your attention that colonialism was not a new phenomenon. There was earlier conquest which happened from the 2nd century onwards. So we discussed the earlier conquest of Chinese Empire, Turkish expansion, crusades, etc. And then we looked into the difference between the earlier conquest and the modern European colonialism, and we identified the major distinction will be this pre-capitalist early conquest were pre-capitalist nature, and modern colonialism, modern European colonialism came alongside with capitalism in Western Europe. So it is different from what was there earlier. Like earlier conquest was rooted exacting tribute or wealth from the colonized regions. But in the case of modern colonialism, it actually restructured the economies and relationships, and there was this flow of resources and human beings and human population in both directions. But the point to be remembered, as I said earlier, it is about the profit which always flowed back to their mother country. So basically I am trying to bring out the point that modern colonialism was actually a commercial venture. It was a lucrative operation, bringing wealth and riches to Western nations through economic exploitation of others. So it was basically pursued for economic profit, reward, and riches. And then we talked about the movement in both directions. So from mother country we see the movement of these colonizers as administrators, merchants, soldiers, settlers, travelers, missionaries, scientists, etc. And we see the movement of people from colonies as slaves, indentured laborers, domestic servants, etc. And these movements of goods and humans caused some kind of an economic imbalance which was necessary, which was imperative for the growth of European capitalism and industry. So we came to the conclusion that colonialism is actually the midwife that assisted the birth of European colonialism, that without colonial expansion the transition of capitalism could not have taken place in Europe. So we were discussing all these things in the last class. Now we will move to the next section. So continuing, we must understand that these global connections established by modern colonialism were not entirely new. Europeans, so the question is like this: did Europeans discover these new lands or routes. So the point is, the trade routes that had connected Europe with Asia, Asia with Africa, since antiquity were reworked and expanded as Americas were discovered by excuse me, as Europeans. So expanding this, we can say that capitalism has developed over the last 700 years, and its center moves from like Holland, Britain, and point the center is of course America. So then the question is, how did European colonialism metamorphose or changed, altered into the monstrous shaper of world history? The point is, we had all those earlier colonialism, earlier conquest, and how come European colonialism took up a monstrous shape? So Marx gives his idea about the same. He says that the primitive accumulation of wealth necessary for capitalism involved both the alienation of European peasantry from their own land and European colonialism. So I quote the lines from Marx. He says that the discovery of gold and silver in America, the extirpation, the enslavement and entombment in mines of the aboriginal population, the beginning of the conquest and looting of the East Indies, the turning of Africa into a warren for the commercial hunting of blackskins signalize the rosy dawn of the era of capitalist production. These idyllic proceedings are the chief moments of primitive accumulation. So, but other scholars have different ideas about the idea projects and points projected by Marx. So according to Rosalie Luxemburg, she says that Marx gave less importance to the history of colonialism, and he actually focused on the economic and political development within Europe. So it is from 1950s onwards, the world system theorists started exploring the ideas on how colonialism actually worked to form. So they took up some ideas from Marx, but they believed that Marx didn't give much contributions to the analysis of colonialism. So we are talking about different types of colonialism now. So you must understand that European colonialism was part of the creation of a global economic network, and it took many forms across the globe over its long history. So it didn't have a single form, or we shouldn't say that it is a monolithic structure. It had different forms in different parts of the world. So one major distinction to be made is between administrative colonialism and settler colonialism. So talking about administrative colonialism, we must say that it involved no large movement of peoples from colonizing country to the colony, which was controlled basically through military, administrative and economic apparatus, such as we had in India. British was coming to India. Colonial administrations in this case function to a large extent through local authorities and existing power structures. They often incorporated rather than disturbing the native hierarchies. So they incorporated themselves into what was already there. There was some kind of a hierarchy prevalent in that country, in the colonized area. They just penetrated into this hierarchy. For example, what we saw in Bengal, the taxes were collected not by all those administrators. It was through all those hereditary Indian collectors collected all those taxes, and it was given to their administrators. So it is said that millions of Indians have never seen an English person throughout the term of the British Raj. Can you imagine? So you must understand that even in the case of India, it was just 1 lakh Britishers who came to India to rule India, and you must understand that 1 lakh people for the whole India. How did they rule? So not something like a direct rule, direct interaction with all the native people. So here we are trying to talk about some kind of a shallow penetration which can be seen as a prototype. So it is a prototype of what we see in modern imperialism, what we see what America do now. So it is just a shallow penetration. It is like we know that they are there and they have the control, but they don't directly come into directly be there. So that is what is known as administrative colonialism. So it is something like functioning through what is known as remote control. But in countries like Namibia, South Africa, there was yet another pattern with more direct and powerful intervention. So settler colonialism is colonizing people comes down to this colonized region. They settle down in large numbers, like they will be moving in large numbers, subjugating the native population and mixing, even they mix with them, creating a complex racial hierarchy, as you saw, you see in all those Spanish and Portuguese did in Latin America. So there is a lot of mixing happening in settler colonialism, and there are other cases in which these settlers did not officially mix with these native population, as the case in Africa and the North America. So settler colonialism usually involve decimating or ghettoization of native inhabitants alongside the takeover of their land. So they will destroy the population, or the ghettoization is actually segregating the native population, and they take over their lands, as they did in North America, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. So, and even the creation of Israel state is regarded by many as a case of settler colonialism. So the Jewish settlements resulted in forced expulsion and ghettoization of the previous Arab populations of the land. So you must know the history of Israel. And there is this third form of colonialism, that is plantation colonialism. So it is actually a variant of settler colonialism, in which we see all those white settlers importing slave and endangered population from different parts of the world to the colony, usually to grow a crop for resale elsewhere. So that is what we see when these people, Africans, were taken to West Indies for the as I said, as in my last class, we talked about all those West Indies plantations of basically sugar. So we saw all these movement of African population. So they are taken by the white settlers to a different place for a commercial venture. So that is what is known as plantation colonialism. And yet there is another version, that is territorial annexation. It is what we saw in the annexation of Puerto Rico or Hawaii. And these differences actually explain why colonial histories and experiences are so varied, and also why this post-colonialism carry different meanings across the world. So that is my point, that colonialism, we cannot give a single definition of colonialism, because it is different in different areas. It is, as I said earlier, it doesn't have a monolithic structure. It took different forms in different parts of the world. So